Hi everybody and welcome back to the Coderoom. Okay, we're going to continue our styling exercises. We've done links, we've done paragraphs, we've done headers. Now we're going to move on to tables. Okay, so we have our web page here. Again, we got our headers and links styled. Okay, and now let's look at this table down here. Okay, we got this pricing table, and if you look at it, there's a lot of things missing. There's no borders. Maybe we want to highlight the rows differently. Maybe we want the table to span the width of the page. A lot of things we can do there. Okay, so let's start styling this table here. All right, so one of the first things I want to do is I want to add some borders to this table because I can't really see, where this table ends and the divisions of all that, okay? So typically when you add borders to a table, you actually add it to the cells inside the table, okay? Now, there's a couple ways you can do this, all right? Now, if we look at our HTML here, okay, we have these cells here, these TDs here, okay? Now TDs are typically nested inside a body or inside a head, and then that head or body is typically nested inside a table, right? So we could technically just put TD and start styling them, okay? But you know what? I want to be more specific and just be careful that these are only TDs that are inside a table, all right? So this is now where we get into another way to chain CSS selectors. Okay, in the last video, we talked to you about pseudo classes and how pseudo classes can be chained by just sticking them right side by side, right? You can have an anchor tag, okay, and right side by side to the anchor tag, you have a colon pseudo class here, okay? This pseudo class called colon hover or a pseudo class called colon visited, okay? Now I'm going to teach you a different way of chaining CSS selectors. All right, so what I'm going to teach you now is how to chain CSS selectors if you want to specify elements within other elements, okay? And so what I mean by that is, let's say I want to affect the TD elements, but only TDs that are within a T body, okay? Or maybe TDs that are within a TR that are within a T body that are within a table, okay? You can chain these however you want, okay? So we start with our TD selector, and this is very similar to how we've been doing things before. You just specify the element, okay? And then what you do is you specify a bunch of properties. We're used to that, okay? But now let's say we want to be more specific and say only TDs that are within another element, okay? And the way you do that is you prepend the outer element and then separate it by a space. Now the space is very important, okay? So what this says is any TD that is nested inside a T body, apply these properties, okay? Now, it doesn't have to be a direct descendant. It's just any TD that's within a T body, okay, no matter how deep it is, okay? And you can chain this even further. You could say any TD that's within any T body that's within any table, okay? And what's nice about this is you're getting very specific about what elements you're targeting, okay? And you'll see how this gets really, really useful in the future, okay? So let's start with that lesson right there, okay? So I want to add some borders to my TDs, okay? So let's go here to the style. And I want to take any TD, okay, that's inside a table row, okay, that's inside a table body, that's inside a table. Okay, we're getting very specific there, all right? Okay. So any TD that's inside a table row, that's inside a T body, that's inside a table. Okay, now for these, I want to, let's just say change the text color for now, okay? So we'll say the color is gray. So we'll save that, and there you go. You see the text that's inside a TD, that's inside a table row, that's inside a table body, that's inside a table, turns to gray, okay? Now let's add a border. All right, this is the first time we've introduced you guys to a border. So the way you do it is you do border, and then there's 3 values that you're passing to it, okay? The 3 values that you're passing to it are the border size or width, okay? The type of border, do you want it solid or dashed? And then the color of the border, okay? So I want my border to be 1 pixel wide. I want it to be a solid border rather than a dashed border. And then I want it to be black. Okay? So save that, refresh, and there you go. All the TDs, all the table data cells have now a border that's 1 pixel wide, that's black, and that's solid, okay? You could do another type, for example, if you do dashed. Okay, there you go, you get dashed borders. Okay, I like solid though, so we'll keep it that way. Okay, and then let's put some borders around the header as well. Okay, so we're gonna take, if we look at our HTML again, you'll see these are THs inside table rows, inside table heads, inside tables. Okay, so tables, inside the T head, inside the table row, we're going to style the TH, okay? So we're going to make the border 1 pixel, solid, and black again. Okay, so save that, refresh, and there we go. All right. Now, one thing to know about these nested selectors, okay, is that you can decide how specific or how vague you want to be, okay? So technically speaking, because these are the only TDs on this page, you could technically get rid of this whole thing and it will still work, okay? And in fact, you can even get rid of the T-body and the TR if you want, and that's all up to the way you decide to do your CSS, okay? The more complex your CSS gets, you'll decide to combine certain things and you'll decide to structure certain things a certain way, and it all depends on your application, okay? But for now, know that you have the option to nest it as specifically as you want or as vague as you want, okay? Depends what you're targeting. Okay, so the table's looking pretty good. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting is you notice that there's these kind of border gaps, right? So between every cell, there's these kind of borders in between it, or these kind of gaps in between it. How do we solve that? Well, that's actually a property on the table element itself, okay? So let's put another selector above these called table, okay? And the table property you're looking for is called border collapse, okay? So you say border collapse, okay, colon, and then you specify collapse. And what that'll do is it'll collapse all the gaps in between the borders, okay? So save that, go back to Chrome, refresh, and there we go. Now it's looking like a real table, okay? Now, one thing I don't like is I don't like how close the data is to the actual cells themselves. Like you can see, like there's not a lot of spacing, okay? So we're gonna add another property here called padding, okay? So on the TD inside the body, let's add some padding here, okay? And you can specify how many pixels you want, okay? So let's say I want, 10 pixels of padding all around the cells, okay? So save that. And there we go. So now there's 10 pixels between the content and the borders, okay? And let's say I want the same thing for the header rows there, okay? So do the padding, 10 pixels, save that. There we go, okay? Table's looking pretty good. I don't like the fact though that it doesn't span the width of the entire web page, okay? So I want to expand it to the entire width of the web page. All right, so the way we can do that is under the table, it's the whole table now. Okay, we can specify a width, okay? Now what amount of pixels do we put here, okay? We could put, say, 500 pixels, okay? Okay, but that's not big enough. But that would be big enough if my browser was a little bit smaller. That would be big enough. But you can see, like, it depends really on the width of the browser, right? So how can we specify a value that says always to be the width of the browser? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Width can actually take in multiple types of values. One is the number of pixels, but the other thing it can take in is actually the percentage, okay? So what we can say is the width is 100%, okay? And what that means actually is 100% of the outer containing element, okay? And the outer containing element in this case is the body, which takes up the entire width of the browser, okay? So refresh that, and there we go. Now it's 100%, and it actually resizes as we resize the browser. All right, the last thing I want to do actually here is show you how to give alternate rows different background colors, okay? This is a very common thing that we like to do, okay? So what we can do is we can actually use another pseudo class, okay? So we came across pseudo classes with links, all right? Table rows actually themselves also have some pseudo classes, okay? So I'll show you how to do this. All right, so I'm going to only target the rows that are in the body. Okay, I'm not going to target the rows in the head here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say within the table element, find the T body element, and within the T body element, find the table row element. Okay, all right, so let's just experiment briefly here. So let's say all the table rows, I want any color in there to be, let's say the background color, okay, we want to be a light gray. So let's say DD, DD, DD. Okay, so save that. Refresh. Okay, and now all the background of the rows are gray. Okay, so that's great. Let's say I only want the odd number of rows in this to be gray. How do you do that? Well, we're going to use a pseudo class selector. Okay, so chained onto the table row, we use a pseudo class called nth child. Okay, all right, the nth child, and you pass in a value here called odd. Okay, and what that means is any table row that happens to be an odd child, so the first child, the third child, the fifth child, the seventh child, and so on, within a T body, within a table. So you can see how complex these selectors can get. Okay, we're constantly chaining them. Okay, so because we're separating T body and TR by spaces, that means T body nested in a table, TR nested in a T body. And because this is directly after the TR without a space, it's a pseudo class applying to that table row. Okay? All right, so we save that, refresh, and there we go. Now only every odd row is highlighted in gray. Okay? And you can probably see this more evidently if we kind of copy and paste some of these rows. Okay, so let's just copy and paste more of these rows. So I'm just going to copy that row and paste it again, and paste it again, just so you can see the effect. And then refresh, and there you go. Every odd row is a different color. All right? Let's say you wanted every even row to be that color. All you have to do is change this to even. Save that. And there you go. Okay? And actually, let's do one last thing. Let's change the header row to be a different color. All right? So let's do table, T head, TR. Okay? So the table row, that's within the T head, that's within the table. Okay? And we'll say the background is black, and let's make the color of the text white. Save that, and there we go. So you've learned a lot of things this lesson actually. You've learned how to apply pseudo classes to table rows, and you've learned how to nest CSS selectors. Okay, we'll see you guys in the next one.